Hello, friends. It's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Those of us who are human people, humans, not interested in algorithms, really, not interested much in SEO. We are interested in making real connections with real people. Those are the kind of people we want to do business with, and so that's the kind of marketing that we do, which brings us to this show, Marketing for the Rest of Us. So I did a post this morning. And the post started off, quote, "The devil's hand is on you, and God has told me that I can't be friends with you," unquote. And that's how I started my post. Now, I went through the post, and it's gotten a lot of engagement, and I think that's because I'm pushing on some pain points, right? Like, listen, your best friend says the devil's hand's on you, like that's like everybody stops and notices that conversation. And I share it on purpose, right? Like, listen, I'm clear that my pains are preparation for my purpose. Ultimately, I've always wanted to make a difference for people. I've always wanted to inspire people. I've always been interested in transformational work. But you don't transform unless you get honest with your pain. And your pain oftentimes has control over you until you're able to share it with the world. And right, when you share your pain with the world, it all of a sudden doesn't have a hold on you. A lot of time, I think our pains feel scary to share because we feel like people will use them against us. We feel like to share our pains makes us look like we don't have it all together. So it's scary to share it. But here, what happens on the other side of sharing it in a public way is that it no longer has power over you. So that's the first thing I want to say about your pains preparing you for your purpose, is that your pain has no pain anymore. If you're able to share it, you now own the pain rather than the pain owning you. Okay. That being said, let me say this about purpose. I did not come up with this thought, this mindset, but several years ago, I hired somebody named Jeffrey Van Dyke. Jeffrey Van Dyke, he's down in LA as a coach, and he has this beautiful program called Tribal Marketing. And I went through his program, his coaching, and a lot of one of the things he talks about is that our wounds are actually a part of what we're here to do in the world. So if you think about like the way he would describe it is like a slingshot. If you pull back on a slingshot one direction, it's going to go equally back forward the opposite direction, right? So if I have a betrayal wound and I pull this way back, I've been betrayed in my life, and I pull this wound way back, it gets to release my purpose in the world for those that have a betrayal wound. So I'm clear that my tribe, in one way or another, has been betrayed. And I'm clear that my tribe also, in one way or another, has felt like an outcast, like they don't belong. Those are very common pains that my tribe shares with me. We don't belong, and we're not safe because people will stab us in the back or betray us. So this is part of owning your pain or your wounds. When you know that your wounds are actually preparing you for helping those you actually seek to serve, where it's easier to run headfirst into the shadows and confront that pain and that past, because I know that that's the very thing that's going to make me qualified to serve those in my tribe that have the same pain. You know what's funny? And that actually, now that I say that, you can go back and look at the post I did this morning, and you can actually look at the thread of comments. There are a lot of comments on there. And one of the comments was from a friend who said, "I feel like you just literally described my situation." Now, my situation was very specific to me. And here she was saying that she felt like I very specifically described her situation. And that, in fact, one of her friends saw my post, read it, and then messaged her and said, "This sounds like your story." Do you, when you see that, like in this instance, this morning, from that post, what I shared from my past and my wounds is the exact story of somebody else that I already know, but I get to, there's something in you sharing your pain with others that has them not feel alone, that has them feel human and normal and not like an outcast, has them feel safe, has them feel seen. And I bring this up because so many times in marketing, we try to, it's just like, the more I do this, the clearer and clearer I get. Like, so much of marketing is not about your product and service. I don't care about your product or your service. What I'm hungry for is real connection with human beings. And if you and I can create that, can establish that type of connection, then I might be interested in what you have to sell me. But until I know that you're a safe place or that you get me, I don't trust you. I don't trust, especially me, I have a betrayal wound. I'm like, I don't trust people. You have to earn my trust. And I don't think that's unique to me. I think that's the day and age we live in. I think a lot of people have been burned by a lot of people. And I think our default is that we don't trust people. So how do you earn trust in your marketing? You don't do it by talking about your product and service. That's not how it happens. At least, listen, if you're selling something that is, you're selling food at a restaurant, you're a plumber, you're someone like, maybe it's different. I don't think so, but maybe the purchase is a little bit easier. But if you're doing transformative work, if you're a coach, an author, a speaker, somebody who reaches into the lives of somebody in order to call them or help them rise to a bigger game, I don't trust you until I trust you. And in order for me to trust you, I need to know who you are and what events have shaped your life and your worldview. And specifically, not all the good stuff, but what's the bad stuff? You know how many, listen, I'm guilty of this too, and I think there's a place for it. It's not like every post I put on Facebook has to be something that's super soul-searching and deep and dark and moody and whatever. Not every post I do has to be about pain. But I do think that there's a season for it where people know I'm willing to go into the shadows of my own life in order to help you get out of the shadows of your life. And I need to put that out in a very public way. And the easiest way for me to do that is rather than call you out, I'll throw myself under the bus. That is marketing today. We want you to go first. Before we're willing to step out behind our mask, we want you to step out behind your mask. And in this day of digital marketing, most people are doing that. They're waxing eloquent on all the top 10 ways to be happy and to be positive and to... Meanwhile, under the surface of all that happiness is this upset and sadness and unhappiness and fear and all of that stuff that lives under the surface of it all. So you might, and I've done happy posts, and you can do happy posts, but if I don't see the other side of you and all I ever see from you is happiness, I don't trust it. I don't trust it because nobody's that happy. Nobody has it all figured out. I think that's how we filter content. We're like, this feels a little bit too cheery for me. Why? Because there's so much of that now. Now, here's the cool part. Here's what I will say about happiness and positivity. When people know that you're willing to go headfirst into the shadows and confront your pain so that you can free others from their pain, and then you do happy posts, they trust it. They trust the happy post because they've seen you in the dark, and now they get to see you in the light. They can see both sides of you. But if all you ever do is posts about happiness, it just feels unapproachable. I just don't believe you. So, here's the call to action, if you will. You need to begin creating content in your marketing that lets people see the sides of you that are broken, the sides of you that don't work, the sides of you that have been hurt. And don't leave us, listen, let me say this too, we don't share, when we're in a position of leadership and we're in a position of trying to help others out of where they're at, we don't share from a place of being a victim in our own story. We don't share from a place of leaving people concerned. So if you go back and read my post from this morning, if I didn't end it the way I ended it, you could have been left with concern for me. You'd be like, oh, I hope Chris is okay. Wow, that sounds awful. Is Chris hurting right now? I'm not hurting. I didn't share that with you to have your empathy or your pity or your concern. I shared it to go first. I stepped out from behind my mask so that you could feel safe to step out from behind your mask. And to call a new generation of marketers to a higher standard of vulnerability and transparency. So, what there is to do in your marketing is to begin to share from a place of, this was something that was hard for me, something happened to me, something that I suck at, something that I didn't do well. And here's how I got to the other side. Or here's the lesson in it. Here's the lesson in it. I don't think in my post this morning I even shared how I got to the other side. I just drew the dot. I connected the dots to the lesson of it. So that's how you need to step into the next level, the next phase of your marketing, is to begin to open up more. Because until you step out from behind your mask, your people won't step out from behind their mask. You lead the way in transparency and vulnerability, and others will do the same. And when you do that, the people you get to work with will be a dream, right? The kind of people who are comfortable enough in themselves to look at their own shadow and then have a conversation with you about it are dream clients. People who are too afraid to look at their shadow are nightmare of clients, because it's always somebody else's fault and always somebody else, like they take no responsibility for stuff in their life. And so they're a pain in the ass to work with because they have no responsibility in their life or accountability in their life. But when you take responsibility and accountability for your own pains and wounds, and you share that with the world, then what you attract are other people who are willing to be accountable and take responsibility for their own wounds. And those are the kind of people that are willing to change their lives in the name of transformation. They want something different than what they have right now. So that is it for today's episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll catch you tomorrow for another episode. Until then, be well.